Welcome to the March 22nd Sunday service for the Vedanta Society of Providence, Rhode Island. As usual, we begin with the congregational prayer. You may all recite along. We offer our salutations to the all-loving being who endows all beings with consciousness. We meditate on the Lord, who is the origin of the universe. Lord, thou abidest in all. Thou art all. Thou assumest all forms. Thou art the origin and goal of all. Thou art the self of all. Thou art existence, knowledge, and bliss. Salutations unto thee. May the world be peaceful. May the wicked become gentle. May all creatures think of mutual welfare. May their minds be occupied with what is spiritual and abiding. May our hearts be immersed in selfless love for the Lord. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. The topic for this evening is titled Gems Along the Path, and it's some thoughts that really stood out to me from a small book containing 22 articles written by the direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. And the word gem, of course, in its most common use as a stone, a precious stone, semi-precious stone like diamonds, rubies, emeralds, and such. But there's also a figurative use for the word gem. You may find a secluded place on a beach that you've never been to, and you may say, this place is a real gem. In general, gem in the figurative use means something that's outstanding, a standout, something of good quality, immense quality, high quality. And so Vedanta and yoga teaches that the science of yoga is part of the evolution of humankind. And so from that aspect, we can think of the disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, or these sages that have attained to the highest realization, as gems among humanity. So that context is there. A gem can also be a specific idea or a specific writing or a specific article, and that's also part of the idea of tonight's talk. And then within the article itself, certain phrases, certain ideas, certain concepts will resonate. And so for what I did is I picked out what I call gems through these articles written by the direct disciples, things that talked to me as I go along my spiritual path. So that was the idea for the title. I'd like to begin with one of the gems that has always stuck out to me since I came into contact with Swami Vivekananda's writings. It's up there, I think, on the wall, but it's also here, so you can either read it along or just listen. But it really captures the essence. Each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest this divinity within by controlling nature, external and internal. Do this either by work or worship or psychic control or philosophy, by one or more or all of these, and be free. This is the whole of religion. Now I have a 3-dot ellipsis because Swami Vivekananda's version has one or two more follow-on sentences. However, I find, for me, stopping right there is the most powerful part of that verse. This is the whole of religion. The rest, as he puts, is an elaboration, refinement, explanations. But this is the essence of it. Oops. Go there. Okay, so tonight's talk is based on that book. I have it right here. It's called Religion and Its Practice, and it is a collection of articles by the first disciples, the direct disciples. It was originally published in 1955 with the title, The Message of Our Master. And in my research, by the way, if you have one of those, apparently it's it's past the point where it's now a collector's item, right? What is it, 70 years or something? So if you have the original Message of Our Master, hang on to it. But it was changed, the title was changed to The Religion and Its Practice with the Seventh Impression, and that was in 1989. And so we want to ask the question, well, why did the publisher change the title after 34 years of being in circulation? And so I'm going to read from the preface directly. We have changed the title of the message of our Master to Religion and Its Practice, a simpler and more direct one, from which one can easily make out the contents of the book. No other changes have been made. We hope under the new title, the book will be more in demand from people interested in spiritual life. So for those who have grown up with Sri Ramakrishna and understood his disciples, you may say, well, we already knew that, and we could infer from the original title what the contents was. But imagine somebody like me walking in, it was across the street at the time, but it's now here, in that building for my first or second visit. And I had not yet heard about Sri Ramakrishna. I didn't know he had disciples, and I didn't know they considered him the master. So the title, The Message of Our Master, didn't jump off the bookshelf to me. But when I saw a book titled Religion and Its Practice, I immediately knew, as a first or second time visitor, this is what this book is about. And so I bought it, and here it is. So that's why apparently the publisher felt that the title change was needed for that same reason. Maybe it was getting less circulation than they desired, and they want to expand the breadth of the audience or the wider audience. So they changed the title, which is fine. But now, what is the purpose of this book? Again, by the publisher. So I want to read from the preface, actually. And it says, the message of Sri Ramakrishna is fundamentally a spiritual message to a world steeped in materialism. And no one is better fitted to deliver this message of the Master than his disciples, whom he brought up to fulfill his life's mission. In this book, we have collected a good number of articles by these great souls, gems, and have arranged them so as to convey to the reader the true significance of religion and its practice. We hope that it will help such of the reading public as have a thirst for religion and God, but yet are beating about the bush for want of true insight into the matters religious. So they have a specific aim and goal in mind with the publication of these 22 articles, and that is to convey the true significance of religion to those who have a thirst for it. And they also mentioned, we have arranged this book in a certain order to achieve that goal. And so order is important. So what I want to do now is just quickly look at the order of the articles, and then we'll start taking up some articles in detail. Article number 1, the aim of religion. When we are finished reviewing that, we will have an understanding of what the aim of religion is, as seen by one of the direct disciples. Number 2, essence of religion. Number 3, spiritual aspirant and spiritual practices. So they'll give us some insight into those. And then the nature of the worshiper and the worshipped. When we get to articles 5 through 8, the tone shifts a little bit more towards practices and techniques. So now that we've understood the aim and the goal, now we look at some specific techniques. Brahmacharya, strange word, a lot of explanation needed there. Truthfulness, a familiar word with most, but probably there's some subtleties there that they'll present too, is what does real truthfulness mean? Hints on practical spirituality and the way to freedom. The goal and the way. Another simple word, guru, but there's a lot behind that simple word. The 4 paths of yoga, we already hinted at those from the opening from Swami Vivekananda. Do this by work or worship, by psychic control or philosophy, by one or more of these and be free. And then Karma Yoga, which is one of the 4. The book then goes on to talk about work as a means to knowledge, a further explanation of the Karma Yoga. Love of God. What does it mean to love God? What is true self-surrender? faith and self-surrender. Yoga, another simple word, often taken for many different activities or practices, but we'll hear, the direct disciples have a specific definition for it. Pranayama, an unfamiliar word perhaps that needs a lot of explanation. The real nature of man, in this case, the word man can be substituted with humanity or humankind. Self-knowledge, one, and where there's a one, there's got to be a two, at least, and sure, self-knowledge, two, and the paths to realization. And in the corner of this, I have printed the direct excerpt from the publisher, which says the purpose of the book. We hope this book is of value for those who have a thirst for religion, but are in want of true insight into matters religious. So with that, let's take up the first article. Oh, no. Yeah, I always have to start with the disclaimer. Okay. Swami Adishwarananda, who was not a direct disciple, he was one of our contemporaries, and matter of fact, I think the first retreat that I attended here, he was the speaker, a very powerful speaker. He used to be the minister in New York. But he has a nice video out on YouTube called The Direct Way Knowledge. Very, very powerful, 1 hour and 8 minutes, I think, or thereabout. At what point he says, knowledge is fire. Before fire can illumine, it burns. So I always put up this discretion because the talk will proceed without any further disclaimers. Well, Chet, why is a disclaimer needed? Well, first of all, this is stored out on YouTube. We don't know who's going to come across it. It may be other people who know about Ramakrishna. It may be somebody that just gets it in their feed because they look into religious matters, but they know nothing about Vedanta or yoga. And so some of the ideas that are going to come across tonight may be inconsistent, perhaps, with the path that they're following. And one thing Swami Vivekananda said in another little book that I have, smaller than this, bigger than, only the size of a credit card, but he said, come to God any way you can, but in your coming, don't push anyone else down. And so other religions, the people that come across this, they may be holding on to that. For some people, it could be their life, right? Giving them the stability to the life they live. So we wouldn't want to necessarily contradict or challenge somebody who's not ready for the ideas of Vedanta. Well, Chet, this is material from the direct disciples. How can it be in any way needing a disclaimer? In fact, the disclaimer is even more warranted because anybody who sat around a campfire or a fireplace knows the closer you sit to the fire, the hotter the temperature. So we're getting information now, ideas, gems of ideas from the direct disciples. What it doesn't mean there's anything inappropriate, no foul, no language, all the things you normally give disclaimers for. It doesn't mean that. It just means these ideas are very powerful and they should be taken, carefully without disrupting anybody else's belief system. That's the whole idea. Okay, so with that, we're going to come to the aim of religion. That first article was written by Swami Vivekananda. I'll first go through the gems, and then I'm going to elaborate a little bit on the points that he made. So the first gem is he discusses the limits of knowledge. The second gem, he then derives his definition of Maya, and this word gets a lot of use in Vedanta and yoga. So we'll get a definition from Swami Vivekananda. And then he further gives two Sanskrit words, pravriti and nivriti, which we'll explain and define what they mean. Swami Vivekananda then answers the question, when does religion dawn? He gives the conditions, when does religion dawn? And these are all building, so they lead to the conclusion. He then talks about morality, elements of morality, and then the two big walkaways from Article 1. Morality is only possible if there is a liberty to be attained. That's a very interesting, that's an idea that's worth taking up. And then the aim of religion is expansion going on eternally until liberty is attained. Okay, so now let's look at some of his reasoning and some of the points he makes to support these gems. His article begins by what we would call the chicken and egg question. He starts it out with what is first, the seed or the tree? But then he gets a little bit more sophisticated and asks, what came first, being or matter? Intelligence or materialism? And he goes on, and then he says, all of these questions, if you abstract it, all of these are of the same nature, the same insoluble nature, he says. Like the rise and fall of a series of waves, they follow each other in an invariable succession, and people take this side or that side according to their tastes, education, or peculiarity of temperaments. So we have this idea that knowledge, he's starting to poke holes in what we would call rational logic. A little bit later in the article, he talks about the mind-body relationship, where he says, if it be affirmed that seeing the changes of the body can be induced by volition, by willpower, but it's also evident that changes in the body can induce changes in the mind. That one may be a little bit more familiar to us. You know, if you have a toothache, a bee sting, something that's hurting you, your mind tends to want to go towards that bodily distraction. So here a change to the body is impacting a change to the mind. But it is also possible that through concentration, we can induce changes in the body. One example in the stories of Sri Ramakrishna is that he concentrated on Hanuman to such a degree that he actually got a little bit of a tailbone extension. So that's not something we ourselves probably do every day, but it shows you the power of intense concentration, right? That story is documented there in the gospel or in Sri Ramakrishna and his divine play. So that's the mind-body relationship. One can infect the other and vice versa. So this is all supporting Swami Vivekananda's discussion that our knowledge is based on this. It's what comes first, the mind or the body, intelligence or matter. And so he goes on to say, in the ultimate analysis, all knowledge resolves itself into this vicious circle, indeterminate interdependence of cause and effect. Okay. So he says that, well, we're dependent on this knowledge, and it has some utility for common problems, for worldly problems, but he is pretty strong that says it's sufficient for practical purposes, but not necessarily for spiritual purposes. Because we know that everything we experience is through our five senses. We paint the picture of this world by what we see, what we smell, what we hear, what we touch, what we taste. But that's limited. Spiritual knowledge goes deeper and farther than what the senses can bring us, and that's a common theme in Vedanta. So then he says, well, this state of human knowledge, which embraces within its scope the external and internal worlds, that the fact that we have this which comes first argument, he calls Maya, and that's the second gem here. He gives his definition of Maya, that the fact that the limits of knowledge for spiritual purposes, knowledge, our sense-based knowledge is limited, and that he gives as his definition of Maya. And then he gives the action of this Maya. He says, acting in the external world, Maya manifests itself as two powers, attraction and repulsion. So in the external world, we see something we like, we want to reach it, grab it. We see something we don't like, we want to repel it, we want to push it away. That's how Maya manifests in the external world. In the internal world, the manifestations are desire or non-desire. And he uses the Sanskrit words here, pravritti And vritti, that Sanskrit word always reminds me of the English word vortex, or whirl, and that's kind of what it is, these definitions: whirling towards or whirling away from, attraction or repulsion, desire and non-desire. So then Swami Vivekananda, in his article, goes on to say, desires of materialization are dragging us down more and more to the plane of mechanical action. These belong to, I'm looking for a substitute word for the word he uses here, to the non-spiritual man. Let me just substitute the word non-spiritual there. It is only when the desire to prevent all such bondage to the senses arises, right? It's only when the desire to prevent all such bondage to the senses, the mind, arises. That is when religion dawns in the heart of man. So now he's defined when religions dawn. Not until the desire to prevent our bondage to the senses arises. And so he says, thus we see that the whole scope of religion is to prevent man, or humankind, from falling into the bondage of the senses, and to help us assert our freedom. The first effort of this power of nivritti, or internal non-desire, is called morality. And the scope of all morality comes down to two things: the do's and the don'ts. Yoga would call it the yamas and the niyamas, but the do's and the don'ts. The do's tell us something we should put our energy towards because they help us break out of this bondage that's already been established in our habit. The do nots are the cautionary things that say, if you do not do these, you will avoid bondage of creating a more deeper bondage. So there are check on desires. So we have religion. When does it dawn? When that urge to become free of the senses dawns on us. Religion dawns. The elements of the morality then are the do's and the don'ts, the yamas and the niyamas, which guide our behaviors and our actions and tell us where do we expend, how should we best expend our energy. And then he says, well, the struggle for expansion must go on eternally until perfect liberty is obtained. And that's his conclusion. So this is the aim of religion in the writing of Swami Vivekananda, one of the direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. We'll go on now to the article number 2. And this is the essence of religion. It's also by Swami Vivekananda. And this article starts out in a very interesting way. Now, I'm going to start out with a sentence before I get to Swami Vivekananda's. But if we look in the founding documents of the United States, it says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all are created equal and endowed by the Creator with unalienable rights. So the Creator, in this Western view, gives unalienable rights to those created, the people. Swami Vivekananda starts his article opposite that. He mentions that that is the focus of the West, human rights. But he said in India, we're not so much concerned about human rights as we were about the rights of gods. Now, what a gem of an idea. Why would a God, who we normally think of as omniscient, all-powerful, who's endowed rights to others, according to the other view, why would a God need a right? Why did the gods need rights? Okay, so he continues, and we'll answer that in a minute, but he continues about the education of children next. And he says, in ancient India, the idea was, if I have a child, I should not teach that child any religion or any trade, craft, or anything at first, teach them three things. Give them character training. Give them training in concentration. And we already heard how powerful concentration can be. And lastly, they give them one mantra, which is the Gayatri mantra, Om Bhurabhuva Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhago Devasya Dhimahi, which basically, in a simple, we meditate on the giver of light throughout the whole universe. May that giver of light enlighten my mind. So it's very non-sectarian. And Swami Vivekananda's point here is that when the child grows up, they have the power of concentration. They have character. And they know there's a universal principle which enlightens the mind. Now they can go about and hear different teachers and different philosophies and pick the one that resonates most with them. And he says, in one family, the husband might be a Buddhist. The wife might be a Vedantist. One of the children might follow Islam. Another child might follow Christianity. Yet in that household, there's harmony. And that's because India gave the rights to the gods. Now I'll give you a little more of the direct writing from Swami Vivekananda. He says, we are glad to remember that all roads lead to God, and that the reformation of the world does not depend on all seeing God through the same eyes. Our fundamental idea is that your doctrine cannot be mine, nor mine yours. I am my own sect. It is true that we have created a system of religion in India which we believe to be the only rational religious system, but our belief in its rationality rests upon its inclusion of the searches after God, its absolute charity towards all form of worship, and its eternal receptivity of those ideas tending towards the evolution of God in the universe. So they accept all of these paths and all of the evolution of the ideas behind God. But then, and there's the but there in the gem number 1, but he says, because we admit the imperfection of our system, because the reality must be beyond all systems, and that's gem number 3. And in this admission lies the portent and promise of eternal growth. Sects, ceremonies, and books, so far as they are the means of realizing our own nature, are all right. However, when a person has realized that, that person gives up everything and shouts what would seem like it would be blasphemy to a culture who is built off the Vedas, but that person, having reached in that enlightened state, yells, I reject the Vedas. This is the last word of Vedanta philosophy. So that's very interesting. Rituals, hymns, and scriptures through which a person has traveled to freedom vanish for that person. Shoham, Soham, I am he, or I am that, I am that. Right? And we hear that's one of the Mahavakyas, Tat Tvamasi, thou art that. And you finally realize it and experience it. So then we come down, and a little later in the article, and Swami Vivekananda writes here, the real study, the real essence of what we're trying to achieve is to realize the unchangeable, that what doesn't change, the Brahman. And that is realized neither by reading nor believing nor reasoning, but by superconscious perception and samadhi. And when a person has reached that perfect state, that person now is also of the same nature of a god, or tying back to my title, we could say such a person is a gem among humanity. And when we approach the absolute with the 5 senses, something we already heard in the first article, we can only see the absolute as the personal God. The idea is that the self, Brahman, cannot be objectified. It is the eternal subject. can the knower know himself. But Brahman can cast a shadow, the Atman can cast a shadow. And the highest form of that shadow, that attempt of objectifying oneself, is the personal God. So I asked AI to create a couple of pictures for me along these lines. And this is what's in the text there is the actual quote from Swami Vivekananda. And this came from his address, actually. It was the Vedanta philosophy given at the Philosophical Society of Harvard University on March 25th. It's in my book, of course, here. It's also in the Complete Works, Volume 8. But this, let's look at this quote from Swami Vivekananda. We are eternally struggling to objectify the self. So that means we have an intuitive knowledge that somehow we are connected to this thing, call it the self, the Atman, and the Brahman. And out of that struggle has come the phenomenon of this universe. Think of that statement. Out of our struggle to realize our own true self, that which we call matter, the phenomenon of this universe, is the result of that. But then he says, well, we may have produced all of this, but this is only a weak attempt. The highest objectification of the self possible to us is the personal God. So that's quite a gem, worth thinking about and reading about. You may want to get the book or go to the Complete Works, because there's a lot of filling material that in order to complete a 1-hour talk, I'm just giving you the gems and maybe a little filler, but just studying this one little book. And actually, looking back, I had put this book back on my shelf. I bought it one of the first visits here, which would have been around 2001. And I read it. I didn't read the preface, so I read it randomly, whatever article seemed to catch my attention for the day. So I didn't get the sense of the importance of the sequence that I did when I started preparing for this talk. But then I put it on my shelf for a while. But now looking back to prepare this talk, I realized how much of my understanding of Vedanta and yoga was fixed just from the reading. Fixed not in the sense of corrected, but established, I guess is the word I want. Just from this one little book. I've gone on to read, Swami Yatishwarananda's books and Swami Adishwarananda's books and many others along the way too. But reflecting back and doing this exercise in this little one book, so much of my foundation was poured just from this one book. Okay, so sorry, back to the story. So I just advanced the slide, and it's the same thing, but in the corner, what you see in the left corner, you see the 4 yogas. The group in the back are doing selfless service. It looks like it might be an infirmary hospital, right? Karma yoga work. The lady in the leftmost is worship. The lady in the blue sari, meditation, psychic control, and then the lady in the yellow sari is, you can say, jnana yoga reading, right? So although the 4 yogas that we heard about at the start of the talk by work or worship, psychic control, or philosophy are represented there. And then it comes down to the 4 or 5 people bowing down to their personal God. Here, which is Narayani, you'll hear her sung about later tonight during the arati. So this is the idea of that. There's one more story from Swami Vivekananda that I had used this in a talk sometime back, probably about in October 2024. And Swami Vivekananda, in his story of Bhakti Yoga, gives the following story. He said, there was an old bearded yogi who sat on the banks of a river, and there was a young cowherd who used to visit that river and bring his flock there to get some water and refresh themselves. And that young cowherd would see this old yogi meditating on still, calm, peaceful. He finally got up the courage one day to approach that yogi. And he said, "Sir, I see you here meditating every day, so peacefully, deep, and could you tell me something about God?" And the yogi, go away. What do you know? You're just a simple person. You have no education. Why do you want to know these things? Go away. So the young cowherd went away. Month goes by. The cowherd's there every day. The yogi's there every day. He said, I'm going to try again. I'm not. He went to approach him again. He said, no, go away. Go away. You don't need to know these things. So finally, some more time goes away, and the young cowherd, I'm going to try one more time. So he approaches the yogi one more time. He said, look, if you want to understand God, pick out the most handsome bull, the most powerful bull in your herd. Think of God as being even higher than that manifestation. God is really the manifestation of the highest bull that you can think of. You meditate on that. So months go by, years go by, and the cowherd every day is thinking of the most beautiful, powerful bull he could think of. And then finally one day, in a flash of light, this bull manifests, and it starts talking to the cowherd. And he shakes his head, wait a minute, bulls can't talk, and this is bigger than any bull I've ever seen. And so he shook himself out of it. But he kept on meditating on it. And then finally it dawns on him one day that the voice he's hearing and the enlightenment is actually coming from his own heart. And that's the idea of the illumination there. You see it kind of radiating through his back, but it's also radiating from his heart. So it's kind of a nice story about how deep devotion to your ideal will manifest in your life with dedication and intense concentration. All right, we come now to essay number 3. This is by Swami Saradananda. It's titled Spiritual Aspirant in Practices. And the gems here, a clear concept of sadhana is needed. Wrong notions prevail, and it can mislead or ruin people. So we'll hear some more details. Truth cannot be realized in error. Seems self-evident, but we'll hear a little bit of words from him on that. Truth is not determined or established by the majority or a minority, not a privileged group of priests or politicians or whatever, or nor by a large-scale number of people, but only by its fruits. And we also have in the Mundaka Upanishad, Satyam eva jayate. And the form of the verb used, jayate instead of jayati. The te form means of its own, whereas jayati is victory by some instrument or some help. Jayate is self. So truth is victorious of itself, is what my interpretation of that Mundaka Upanishad verse. Then we'll hear the secret of mortal struggles. And we'll find out that both Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga both will lead to Nirvikalpa Samadhi. And to see God in all, which is a teaching of Ramakrishna, Vijnana, supreme wisdom, is the last word of Yoga Vedanta teachings. So now let's go through and look at some of the supporting ideas around these gems. And Swami Saradananda starts out, if we want to be spiritual, we must have a clear conception of what is sadhana, or what is spiritual practice. Wrong notions prevail among people. Many of the day are in a zeal to obtain something supernatural. And they take recourse to certain practices that are neither conducive to spiritual growth or healthy to life itself, and thus they cut themselves off from the string of life. And some of them also think that gods and powers can be brought under our control to advance desires and things, but as we already heard, real religion only begins with the desire to get away from the sense-based world. And then he says, sometimes even mystery-mongering passes for real spirituality. And then he even said, sometimes the practice is enjoined by sages on particular individuals to help that individual overcome an evil or bad habit or a bad tendency get preached universally. And that's not the case. I don't think we would want to advise too many people to meditate on the biggest giant bullhead that they could possibly see, like that yogi taught to the cowherd. But that was the value stream of the cowherd. That was his ideal. But we have other ideals which we recommend in our times to people. But that doesn't mean that what the teacher told a particular student was not valuable to that student. It just means that it's not necessarily universal. So we have to be careful. Okay. And then he quotes Sri Ramakrishna directly here. He says, Sri Ramakrishna used to say, to see God in all is the last word on spirituality. And indeed, this blessed vision dawns when a person reaches the summit of sadhana. The Hindu Shastras also testify to this. The Shastras declare all is Brahman, all various objects, gross or subtle, conscious or unconscious, humans, animals, birds, trees, plants, all that you see in this universe are but that one individual Brahman. That Brahman alone you sense in various forms in diverse ways. Through all of the time you have lived and moved in Brahman and hold your life's daily dealings only with Brahman, yet you are not aware of it. And you think you are doing so with different people and diverse objects. But why is it not realized? And then he answers gem number 2 here. You cannot realize truth as you are in the midst of error. So long as the mist of error is not cleared away, the mistake cannot be found out. And error is only detected when it is compared with truth. But as we've already talked about, the truth that you are going to compare it to is not something that's a majority opinion or a minority enforcement of a powerful set of priests or politicians, but it's by the lives, the examples of those who have realized, by the fruits, really, what has following that path meant to those individuals. And he says, dreams appear as true as long as you are dreaming, and only when compared with the waking state, after the sleep is broken, do the dreams appear false. And there are those that say the same for us. This jagat, this awakening state, appears real to us, and as we just heard, we think we're doing interactions with various people and objects and things. But it's only when we awaken from this state into the higher state that we can realize the truth of what the sages are saying to us. And then I came to this next paragraph here, which really is amazing for me. It says, and instances are not wanting to show at times there lingers the memory of the highest consciousness of the one indivisible Brahman, as experienced in samadhi, even while one is perceiving the manifold universe in the waking state. Now, we know it's very difficult when you're in samadhi. Even Sri Ramakrishna was asked several times by his devotees, please tell us, what are you experiencing? And he would go up to a certain level, and he says, after that, Mother shuts off my voice. I cannot talk about it. But here Swami Saradananda is telling us that there lingers the memory of that. Otherwise, how would we have teachers? If the memory didn't linger to anybody, nobody to bring it back to us, right? So there has to be a memory about it. So I think that's a very, very important memory. It's going to take us a little bit on an aside, which I'm very passionate about, though. So I hope you're willing to go on this side journey with me. This comes from the Italian Catholic tradition of the years of Dante Alighieri. It's a trilogy book that is really amazing, and it's a gem for me. And it tells the story of a person. Basically, I can't give it all now. I gave a whole talk on it. But basically, he visits the 7 levels of hell. He comes up. He visits the several levels of the purgation, the cleaning. And then he visits the 7 levels of the celestial sphere. And at the 7th level, I believe that what he's describing here is nirvikalpa samadhi. And I'll just share why I believe that, and I have some quotes directly from the work. And so he says here, and these are direct quotes. This is the Longfellow translation, because it was in Italian. He says, "And I who to the end of all desires was now approaching, even as I ought, the ardor of desire within me ended." So we've already heard about that, right? Nivritti. Religion dawns with the end of the desire to be tied to the senses. And he's saying that in different words, but he is saying that. Even as I ought, the ardor of desire. So that's the tendency to desire, not just that my manifest desires are going away. The tendency to desire itself is going away. And then he goes on. My mind in this wise, wholly in suspense, steadfast, immovable, attentive gazed, and evermore gazing grew enkindled. Now, to me, again, this is just my thought on this, but what do we hear about the nirvikalpa samadhi? It's the cessation of thought. It's the definition of yoga itself. Yogas chitta vritti nirodha, cessation of the mental waves. And he's saying that. My mind wholly in suspense, meaning thoughtless to me, steadfast, immovable, no other thoughts, and evermore gazing grew enkindled. Then, because my sight, becoming purified, was entering more and more into the ray of the high light, which of itself is true, right? Brahman is true of itself. We've already heard that. Satyam eva jayate, right? Brahman needs no explanation or no validity from anybody. Brahman is. So, of the high light, which of itself is true. From that time forward, what I saw was greater than our discourse, that to such vision yields, and yields the memory to such excess, even as he who seeth in a dream, and after dreaming, the imprinted passion remains, and to his mind the rest returns not. So we just heard that from Swami Saradananda, right? He says that instances are not wanting to show at times, there lingers the memory of the highest consciousness, just as somebody coming out of a dream may have a hint of the memory of the dream. And so he's saying this. So what did he see? That's really the question. And so what he saw, you can see it on the picture that AI generated pictures. He saw everything in the universe scattered about, and so what he calls it, he used the word leaf, right? He says scattered like leaves from a book. Now a page is a single side of a leaf, but the piece of paper is a leaf. So he says all of the things in the universe scattered about like leaves from a book that don't have any binding. But they're all tied together through this one universal, he called it the light eternal or supreme light, which has the basis of love. And so he sees the unity and the diversity, just what we heard earlier, that everything you have seen, men, birds, animals, people, plants, is really the one Brahman. And he comes to the same conclusion, that it's really all one. Again, there's a lot more to this whole thing, but that's just a hint. But it supports Swami Saradananda's comment here, that there lingers the memory of the highest consciousness of the one indivisible Brahman. And so people are available, have to bring it back if they're going to be. But then he talks about, well, truth is not to be judged by the opinions of the majority or the minority. We already talked about that. But only by the experiences of the sages should be accepted as true. And our own experiences, we should use 3. The experience of the sages, what the scriptures say, and then our own personal experience. All 3 have to be in harmony for us to understand it to be as truth. And because the sages were able to free themselves from all kinds of miseries, to become fearless, to acquire eternal peace and blessedness, that, they're saying, is the establishment of the truth of these teachings. And there was a Swami Ganananda who went to visit Carl Jung, and he had a discussion with Carl Jung, and Carl Jung asked him, well, what is the value or the utility of this samadhi that you keep talking about? And he basically said to Carl Jung, it gives supreme peace and light. And so we see this here. So I think the culmination of some of the gems that we have seen is that if we want to know the truth of this universe, we have to get out beyond the universe of name and form, beyond space and time and causation, beyond ideas and ideation. But this is the secret of the mortal struggle. And he went on to elaborate that through this journey of the sages who brought this knowledge to us, through their struggles to find this, the rishis who discovered this knowledge, this is the secret of mortal struggles, because it brings to us that experience which gives us the vision of the Brahman. And let's see, the last thing we want to talk about from here, as it has already been told, and you'll have to get the book and find out what he told, but the dhyani or the bhakti, in both paths, one eventually gives up the attachment to the senses, and when this renunciation becomes complete, the mind becomes free from all thought waves and attains samadhi, and this kind of samadhi is called nirvikalpa samadhi. And that is the vision, or the experience more than the vision of the Brahman. So I think now, with time closing, we'll do one more essay, and this comes from Swami Turiyananda. It's titled The Worshipper and the Worshipped. And here he gives the characteristics of the worshipper and the worshipped as neither are matter. So it is basically an experience of consciousness and consciousness, or spirit and spirit. He uses the word spirit, the worshiper, and which are both spirit, but only according to the differences in the samskaras of the worshiper, their relation differs. So we can establish different relationships with the infinite and worship along that line. And this next one, the gem number 2, is another reason for using a disclaimer, because they say all desires end in rebirth, and even desires of heaven are exhausted. So we know there are some traditions who hold as the achievement of heaven as their highest ideal, and they want to go there and stay there. Vedanta teaches something a little bit different from that, which again is why I use a disclaimer. We don't want to offend anybody, but this being a Vedanta society, we will hold to the Vedanta teaching on that matter. And so we establish, and we know that they teach different relationships. One can take the personal God in several different forms. You can see God as the mother, the father, a friend, even a lover, I think, is one of them that's allowed. Each of those, of course, have their own teachings and guidelines to follow whatever you go. But you do whatever the guru gives you is the way. But they do permit all of these different. I think of Krishna as the sort of the friend relationship, because Arjuna went to him in a despondent state, about to fight a battle. He said, well, you can have my whole army or you can have me. Take your pick. He said, I want you as the charioteer, right? So that's, to me, like an ideal friendship. Somebody willing to go to battle with you, stick by your side, under good and bad, under the face of what seems to be overwhelming odds. That's a friend that may appeal to some, but others like the mother relationship or the father relationship. So it's based on the samskaras of the seeker that establishes one of those relationships. But then in the end, he talks about sort of the high conclusion of Vedanta. There is neither destruction nor creation. There is neither an aspirant or a liberated individual. It's all a play of Brahman. And he says, if you understand this one principle, that it's just one intelligent principle that pervades everything, and if this is known, you have attained the goal to Vedanta. Intellectually, it's relatively easy. I think we can convince ourselves that all the beings that we see, you look at the beautiful artwork of a spider web or the creativeness of anthills or all of these things, and you say there's intelligence behind all of these creatures, right? The intelligent principle prevails everything. More so, too, in human beings, especially the human beings that we like and are our friends. It might be a little harder to see, and maybe some of those we disagree with, but it's there. And they're acting out their play. But beyond that, beyond all, it is the one intelligent principle pervades everything, and we have to know it beyond an intellectual level, but seeing it in action, experiencing it, and of course, seeking out the highest possible experiences, which are the samadhis, which are the culmination of the spiritual teachings of these paths in Vedanta and yoga. So with that, nope, wrong way. So with that, we heard some gems from Swami Vivekananda on the aim and the essence of religion. We heard some gems on the spiritual aspirant and spiritual practices from Swami Saradananda, and just a little bit from Swami Turiyananda about the worshiper and the worship. There's a lot there. I've only gone through 30 pages. That's it, right? Out of this small book, and there is 186 pages. So, what does that mean? Am I going to keep? Well, you could stay till midnight, Charlie. I got a little bit more left in my voice. No, actually, I anticipated this. So these are the summaries, but we're going to skip those now. It's getting close. I am going the right way. Yes. So this, if or when we meet again, I will pick up at essays 5 through 8, which will talk about brahmacharya, which needs a lot of explanation. Truthfulness, again, as I alluded to at the beginning, there's some subtleties there. Hints on practical spirituality and the way to freedom, but for now we have reached the time allotted. So I did dress rehearse this so I was able to build this slide appropriately, knowing that I originally thought I was going to do all 22 articles in one talk. Forget about it. It's just, like I said, 30 pages out of 186 pages, and we're just beginning. So with that, we'll do the references. We're still rolling up there, Jitendra, references and credits. And then the announcements for the week are the next thing. So next Saturday, March 28th, there is a retreat. It is a satsang with Sudhakar Das of the Vedanta Academy of India. He's giving 2 sessions. One is titled The Art of Relationship, and the other is Ancient Wisdom for Modern Living. Registration is available on our webpage until Wednesday morning, March 25th, at which point the registration will be closed and the final list of registrants will be sent out. Next Sunday, the talk, March 29th, will be given by Jyoti Champanarkar. Her topic is Learning from the Parables of Sri Ramakrishna. So that sounds like it'll be also a packed talk full of good ideas and interesting lessons. The Tuesday classes will continue to be given by Tushar Puranik until May 1st. And there'll be no Friday classes until May 1st. And the reason is because Swami Yogamananda is now on an India tour. His schedule that he sent me said returning on April 30th, but I don't know if that's a flight day or a landing day. So April 30th, May 1st, something like that, he should be back in Providence. So with that, we will do the closing prayer. May the divine, who is Father in heaven of the Christians, Holy One of the Jewish faith, Allah of the Muslims, Buddha of the Buddhists, Tao of the Taoists, Great Spirit of the Native Americans, Ahura Mazda of the Zoroastrians, and Brahman of the Hindus, lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the all-loving being manifest unto us and grant us abiding understanding and all-consuming divine love. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. So we will now go to Arati. Charlie, you want this? Okay, thank you. All right, thank you.
Breaker of all worldly bondage and adored by all, we adore you too. Stainless lotus, human form, stainless lotus, human Your feet always dear to your devotees. Form a boat to cross this world. Revealed to us as God incarnate and the Lord of all things, helping us join with you. Your mind's always set in the divine light. Your mind's always set in the divine light. This we can see through your grace, destroyer of our worldly sorrow and compassion so infinite is your word. Your life suffered for the world's deliverance. Your life suffered for the world's deliverance, saving us from darkness and fear. Renouncer of all lust and lucre, therefore you were always spurning sensual life. Lord of monks, you are the best of men. Lord of monks, you are the best of men. Grant to us pure love for you. You're fearless and you're free from doubting, with your mind very firmly resolved. Causeless refuge of your devotees, causeless refuge of your devotees, renouncing past and birth. Is your holy feet which take us very soon across this puddle of life. You give love and even-sightedness. You give love and even-sightedness to remove our anguish here. Our treasure is your holy feet which take us very soon across this puddle of life. You give love and even-sightedness. You give love and even-sightedness to remove our anguish here. Greetings to you, O Lord, beyond both speech and mind. Greetings to you, O Lord, beyond both speech and mind. Yet you are the basis of both. O Lord, yet you are the basis of both. Great light of all lights, blazing in the heart's cave. Great light of all lights, blazing in the heart's cave. Darkness is destroyed by your light. O Lord, darkness is destroyed by your light. Greetings to you, O Lord, beyond both speech and mind. Greetings to you, O Lord, beyond both speech and mind. Yet you are the basis of both. O Lord, yet you are the basis of both. Great light of all lights, blazing in the heart's cave. Great light of all lights, blazing in the heart's cave. Darkness is destroyed by your light. O Lord, darkness is destroyed by your light. Langa ranga bhanga, these are all the sounds of mridanga. Langa ranga bhanga, these are all the sounds of mridanga. Spiritual songs devotees are singing for your worship divine. Spiritual songs devotees are singing for your worship divine. Jaya Jaya for your worship divine. Hara Hara for your worship divine. Shiva Shiva for your worship divine. Breaker of all worldly bondage and adored by all, we adore you too. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Auspicious and blessed, graciousness sublime, all noble ends you give to us, granting us refuge, all seeing glory. O Mother Divine, our love to you. Creation, preservation, dissolution are your powers, eternal one. Nature's real basis, nature's essence. O Mother Divine, our love to you. We come seeking refuge from anguish. Be our Savior through your deep concern. All our suffering remove, Goddess. O Mother Divine, our love to you. Victory, O Mother Divine, our love to you. Blessed Mother divine. All love to you, Blessed Mother divine. All love to you, Blessed Mother divine. All love to you. Jai Shri Ram Krishna Dev Ki Jai. Jai Shri Sarda Devi Ki Jai. Jai Shri Swami Vivekanand Ki Jai. Jai Shri Buddhadev Ki Jai. Jai Shri Jesus Christ Ki Jai.